Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cryptocurrent. Just one quick reminder. Cryptocurrent is a cryptocurrency and blockchain education platform that's bridging the gap between the curious newcomers who are just discovering the space and the thought leaders who are shaping its future. All opinions expressed by Richard Carthon, the Cryptocurrent team, and their guests on this show are exclusively their own opinions. You should not treat any opinion expressed by Richard, the team, and their guests as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or to follow as financial advice. This show and any other Cryptocurrent production is exclusively for informational purposes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cryptocurrent. Your host here, Richard Carthon. And today I have a very special guest talking about a very important topic that I don't think we spend enough time on, but is very essential to all things Web3 and in all things entrepreneurial and business. And I think we have a really, really cool conversation lined up for today. We have Ariadna Navarro, who's the Chief Strategy Officer with VSA Partners. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to unpack all the really cool things that y'all are doing over at VSA. You're helping to create meaningful experiences, creating valuable brands, and we're going to take a deep dive into all of that. But before we do, let's learn a little bit more about you. Can you give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, of course. My background's actually in innovation. I've spent the last 20 years basically helping companies figure out the future. Where do they need to go if their business is being disrupted? Or disrupted, if there are new technologies coming in, if consumers are changing behaviors, what do you do with your core business? How do you expand to new businesses? So I've done everything from big global business strategy to experience design to service innovation to brand strategy and kind of everything in between. So I've had a really, really fun run. I've worked with everyone from Coca-Cola to Google, so and everything in between. So it's been a really good stretch.
And which is really great that you've been able to deal with all these like big entities, understanding brand. How do you create that loyalty, that fan culture of really having someone that will come back over and over again? And as people are building here in Web3, people always come back to that community. How important is the community in doing all these things? And clearly you have a lot of skills that translate into the world of Web3 coming from Web2. But, what was that first introduction into crypto and blockchain? Like, how did you even first learn about this space?
Okay, I have to tell you, I have a personal story and then I have a work story. The personal one came before the work story, and it was interesting timing. And it actually helped me a lot with the work that I later ended up doing. So I got involved with crypto first on a personal level through a friend. And it probably happens that way for a lot of people. And he's one of those like nerds that once he, learns something, any topic, it'll take him 24 hours to be, smarter than everyone else in the room. So I think we were having dinner and I'm like, I've been thinking about it. It's just such a steep on-ramp, not sure how to get into it. And he's like, just you wait. I kid you not, within 3 days, I had gone down a rabbit hole so deep that Alice in Wonderland would not have found her way out. And I had, my Dex tools on one screen. I had my Telegram going on my phone. I had 2 different wallets. I was trading meme coins that my 13-year-old son was making fun of. He's like, Mom, what are you doing buying one piece? And I'm like, stop. I've talked to the developer. I know what's coming. So it became such an insane journey, and it was so intense, and I got hooked so quickly. And I'm I think a responsible adult, and I sort of informed myself and I educated myself really quickly, and I still got hooked so fast that when I came out of it, and I came out of it honestly mostly because I lost everything, like a lot of people. When I came out of it, I realized I'm like, holy crap! Like I was getting up at 4 a.m. to avoid, to get cheaper gas prices, and I was like on the phone on my daughter's birthday, and it became sort of quite addictive. And as a branding expert, I started to think about, holy crap, like it takes years for a brand to build this kind of adhesion. It takes years for brands to create this love and this fanatism and this following and this sense of community. Like, what is it about this? Other than, yes, you're going to, it's fun and you're going to make money, but what is it about it that's so powerful? So that was my personal, and I'm going to connect the dots later. But so that was my personal experience. And I'm like, damn, this is worse than drugs. This is pretty crazy. And then cut to, we were brought in by, and I can't name them, but one of the top 5 trading platforms to help them do their strategy. And it was, so exciting. And you start the conversation with the obvious things like, what makes it different? What are your features? Do wallet better or not? Do you keep the key or not? What are your transaction fees? Are they cheap or low? Like the obvious things. But then you start to talk about, okay, who are you targeting? And who are you trying to bring in? And what's the behavior that you want? And are you going after, okay, the crypto curious? Well, what does that mean? How old are they? How much do you want them to invest? Oh, okay, you want to hook the 18-year-old with a $50 buy? Okay. So like, what are the ethical implications of that? How do you start to think about not just the present, but the future of that? What is the value of money that you're teaching that 18-year-old? So I'll stop there because that's, hopefully we can unpack sort of then the ethical challenges of that. But how we position crypto, or how we continue to position crypto. Maybe after the crypto winter, it's going to naturally change because people are freaked out. But as we come out of this, which I'm pretty sure we will, and start to forget quickly, how do we position crypto for the entry level, and not even entry level? Even if you're, I have people in the office that are like, I put all my savings in crypto. I'm like, really? Because that's bold. And they're adults, they're grown-ups. So I think we all as marketers have a tremendous responsibility to work with our clients, and of course clients as well, in every single platform, because the coins aren't normally going to be the ones sort of leading the charge because they just want to create the volume. But the platforms and the marketers have a huge responsibility to really think about the implications of what we're trying to do.
Oh, definitely. And thank you for that. The rabbit hole that you explained, I feel very similarly. When I first learned about the space, as soon as I started digging, I didn't look up for days. And when I came out on the other end of it, it was, okay, one, why doesn't a lot of people know about this? And then two, like, how we do it in a responsible way for people to participate in this space and have it feel safe and have it feel like enough to dabble, but not enough to absolutely be a degen and put all your money in and lose it all. So as you brought up a really interesting topic that I don't think we've really broken down on the show, and I want to spend some time here. How do you start to explain or create like ethical mandates and on either crypto trading platforms or DeFi protocols, and even some of these DAOs that are getting set up, and like creating responsible design for these people that you're onboarding, right? So like you said, if your target audience is your first time investor, that's 18 to early 20s, or even later on in life where you have people who are potentially putting in some retirement money, like how do you go about that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So first you have to understand what are the pieces that are creating that craziness, right? That fanatism. And I always like to equate this not to other brands you love, right? Because there's brands that everyone loves, Nike or Apple, or like not everyone, but a lot of. But think of other things that people are fanatical about. Think about sports teams. There's teams that haven't won anything 100 years, and people are still fanatical. Like, what creates that fanatism? Religion, cults. There's other things that create. And I started to think about that after my personal experience. I'm like, well, this feels more like Scientology, than something sort of healthy. So when you think of things that create that fanatism, they have a shared language, right? So there's words when you go into there was language that I had never heard of in my life. Run the dip, do the dip, run the, like what, like who's the dip? What are we eating something? What is this? Oh, I get it, right? That's you're hyping up the price, So there's a shared language. There's common symbols, whether that's a mascot, whether that's a logo, whether that's colors, whether that's your flow key tattoo, whatever that is. There's common symbols. There is a steep or a seemingly inaccessible entry level. So it's hard to get into crypto. But once you do, there's a sense of belonging and exclusivity. And all of those things, most of the times, require time. So when you invest time in something, when you really engage and invest time, it's harder to get out. Why? Because I've invested all this time. What do you mean? I'm not going to, I can't switch from the Yankees to the Red Sox. I've been a Yankee fan for 10 years. Like, what? 10 years down the drain. I can't do that. So when you start to think about how do we do this responsibly, it helps to break it down and say, okay, what are the levels of engagement that I think are healthy, that I want to drive for this platform, this brand, this coin, blockchain, whoever you are that you're targeting or that you're selling? What is the level of knowledge that I want to require to get involved? What is that experience and how am I going to build an experience? Yes, that's really fun and engaging and surprise and delight, but without creating the endorphin hit every time, without the fireworks. And then how do I create a sense of belonging that yes, it's an exclusive club, but not to the point where it either leaves others behind or it creates power over the rest, because it's in the power that then you start to get the dysfunctionality. It's like, okay, you have whales. Oh, God damn it. So then they control the whole world. So there's all these different variables that if you break it down almost methodically, then you're like, okay, let me hit those one by one so that I can then ultimately say, okay, well, here's my message and here's how I want to attract who I want to attract, rather than just bring everyone on because we're just building volume and then we know eventually they're going to spend more. That's
Right.
just sort of a lazy approach.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are building and they are solving a specific problem, potentially for a specific person, but that doesn't bring you to critical mass. So you have this conflict of like, okay, yes, you need to start narrow, but then as you try to expand, are you thoughtfully expanding? Or have you thought about the implications? Like, even though I built this thing for this particular type of person, if someone else who it doesn't fit this bubble, have I done it in such a way that brings not just value, but it's like even from an ethics standpoint of like, does this shoe fit all sizes? And a lot of the times the answer is no. And how can people who are trying to build a brand, who are trying to build these really great products in Web3 start to methodically think through all like more scenarios so that it's what they're building is a lot more intentional for that growth and expansion?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, by the way. I did the strategy for quantum computing a few years ago. It's honestly one of the hardest things I've ever done because it took me a very long time to even understand. I lost. There we go. Perfect. And one of the things that we did then, and I recommend this for crypto and crypto curious or crypto experts, whatever level you're at, is to build that experience for these different levels. So when we did quantum, we're like, okay, how do you explain quantum to a 5-year-old? How do you explain it to a 10-year-old? How do you explain it to a 15-year-old? How do you explain it to a 20? How do you explain it to a 30? So when you put the human at the center and you come at it through the lens of empathy, not through the lens of like just attracting whomever, then it's easier to make those choices. And it's like, okay, cool. I have people who are curious who just like want to dabble. Okay, what's the way to do that, to attract them in a way that's really meaningful and responsible? Then I have those that already have tried a little bit and were disillusioned. Okay, how do I bring them back again in a way that's healthy? And what would that healthy relationship be? Then you have, the investor experts. Okay, cool. What's compelling to them? What's meaningful to them? So, at VSA, one of the things that I think separates us from honestly other consultancies is, and it's because of our design heritage, we look at business and strategy through the lens of human value. So how can we create better human experiences? That's just innately who we are at the company. It's what our founders thought about. How do you use design to create better human experiences? Which basically means how do you turn any product into something meaningful and of value? So if you think about crypto through that lens, or NFTs, honestly, because NFTs may be at higher risk now of wreaking havoc than crypto at the moment. If you think about it through that lens, it's like, okay, what is meaningful value? Meaningful value can be entertainment. So it's cool. Okay, fine. It's like, hey, trade for fun. Okay, we're going to cap you at $100. I don't know. I'm making this up, but like it's an idea. So it's okay. That's meaningful value. It's like learn how to trade. Cool. We're going to cap it at 100. We're going to give you 100 fake coins so that you can learn. Fabulous. That's you've brought someone in very responsibly. Trade for currency because you're going to use it to buy. Cool. We're going to teach you how. Here's how we're going to set you up. Trade for investment. Okay, are you level 1 investor, level 2, level 3? If you bring in the human side, now it takes work and it takes diversifying an experience and a UX, and it's not easy for companies to do it, but it's doable. We do it for brands all the time.
So let's spend a little bit of time there because I think you bring up a really great piece of the importance around spending time on branding and going down these different webs of different experiences for the different types of people who are coming to your product, your platform, etc. One of the things that, again, that y'all really pride yourselves on are meaningful experiences. Can you kind of break down how the meaningful experience doesn't have to just be in person, in real life, even from how someone comes to your website and then is being onboarded, and every part of that is an experience. Can you kind of break down the importance of strategy around those different types of experiences?
Okay, I feel like you work at VSA because that's literally when we talk about experience, we're like, an experience isn't just an event or a website; it's every interaction you have. So whether it's this is a full experience, right? I'm talking to you. You are part of the experience. Your UX is part of the experience. The quality of the sound is going to be part of the experience. The content, of course, is part of the experience. So everything is an element in that experience. So again, when you look at a brand, we see brands as an ecosystem. And we really look at, okay, because I'm putting the human at the center, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to create something that's not meaningful to you. I actually don't want to do anything that's not something that you actually need. I don't want to solve a need that you don't have. I want to create as much real value. And that's what we call meaningful value. Whether I am providing entertainment, whether I am providing the actual value of the product or service, and really that's enough and that's okay. Whether I'm creating time, giving you, how do you use 10 minutes in a way that's really exciting? Whatever that is, we're always thinking of how are we creating meaningful value, real tangible value. And to do that in strategy, you have to do a lot of work up front because that means understanding that customer base, that audience. If we take it back to crypto, what are the different levels of investors or the different level of people coming in, really understanding those needs, and then creating, whether it's experiences, messaging, promises, digital experiences, NFTs, like whatever that is, but through the lens of how am I creating value for this audience that I've taken the time to understand. So we want to do that work up front because we're firm believers and honestly like obsessive about not putting more noise out. It's not about like, let's throw out 15 different messages and see what sticks, because you can't, right? That's the world of digital. You can A/B test anything and we all see it. I'm like, why am I getting this on my social feed? This makes no sense. So we try to minimize the noise for brands so that you don't end up being pissed off at a brand, but are like, ooh, okay, I didn't even think about this, but this is they get me. So that's kind of the whole loop of from strategy to meaning to an experience that's really cool. And that's something that's going to resonate with you.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you breaking that down. I think what's happening right now in current market conditions for a lot of people who are building, the builders who are listening to this right now, or even those that are trying to learn more about this, even in your own journeys, right now is a really good time to be putting your head down and building and figuring out a lot of your own processes and who your target audience is, et cetera. And you have a lot of new Web3 companies that are getting ready to come into the market. You have a lot of companies who have realized, okay, we put out this thing. Now we need to really figure out what is our bread and butter? What is our true brand? All of this different stuff. So for someone who's looking for that type of help, what are some steps they can take? Or even if they wanted to, partner and work with a really great branding company, AKA VSA Partners, like how does that process work?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it just goes back to the audience and to your customer. So take the time to understand their lives. Take the time to understand their passion points. Take the time to understand their relationship with technology. Take the time to understand what stage in their life they're at, because it's not an age thing. And it's not necessarily what brands you love or don't love, but it's really understanding where's your head at. What are the roles you played, in your life? You can be a parent, you can be an executive, you can be a, a, a gig economy, Uber driver. Like, it doesn't really matter, but it's sort of understanding the underlying needs and desires of your audience, and then building meaning for that, building experiences that are going to add value, and being thoughtful about that. There's brands that sometimes like, oh, can we build an NFT? And you go like, no, because I don't think actually, people are going to want to have a a deeper experience with X kind of category or X. I don't want to name names, but and then there's other brands when you're like, wow, this is an extraordinary opportunity to really be thoughtful and to deepen that relationship and to like show them who you really are, and to bring some of the things that I know about you to the forefront, the things that you've been afraid to show. So I think it's if you start from a place of truth, um, then that's all you have to do, and if your place of truth is, honestly, I want to create this experience that's just all about entertainment. That's it. Then cool. Then own in. That's have that conviction. Do it thoughtfully. Do it like where it's not required to spend 12 out of the 24 hours a day hooked on it. So do it in a way that you try to manage for that. So truthful and ethical are kind of the two things that I keep going back to when I think about Web3 and when we think about how we bring brands in.
And I think those are two great words: truthful, ethical, as we keep bridging this gap from the people who are leaving traditional Web 2, coming to Web 3, maybe even making a stop along the way, some like a 2.5 version, if you will, just to help keep bridging this. And something that I think is really interesting around branding is because you've been able to see a lot of these brands that took years, right? Took years to establish. And in crypto, people think they can just turn it on overnight. And because there have been some brands that have come out that have done pretty well in a short amount of time, but you see a lot of others who have this gigantic rise up and just fall off the face of the earth. How does someone create longevity in their brand? And you make sure that you don't, as quickly as you go up as a firecracker, you explode, and then now you're gone and forgotten, right? Like how do you have that sustainability as people are like thinking through this, like surviving when these bearish times happen, right? Making sure when things are bullish that, you're able to access as much as possible. What are things that people can proactively be doing now so that they can make sure that they survive into the future?
Yeah. Are you sure you're not a strategist? These are questions that I would be asking. This is awesome. That's a great question. And honestly, it goes back to truthful, but a little bit of a different angle to that. You have to do what's real and credible for your brand. If you are a brand that has interacted with customers at a distance, right? And if let's say all you've ever done is advertising, TV, digital, and call it a day. You've never built a relationship. It's always been very transactional. Let's put it that way. You can't expect or go to your example, like from, okay, I've never bothered to get to know you, to, hi, I'm here. I've created this whole NFT community. Do you want a token? Do you want membership into the soda pop world? No, I don't, because why would I? I've never had that relationship. So, and again, I'm not saying brands shouldn't go there. I'm just saying you have to do it in a methodical way that builds credibility, that's true to you as a brand. And I think you hit on something quite important, that is consistent. So it's no different than, I always equate simple terms. It's a relationship. A brand is a relationship, right? Brands you like or hate, or crypto coins you like or hate, or platforms you love or hate, they're relationships, and they can go sour and they cannot. And if you lie to them, it's the same thing. So if you use that premise and you break it down like that, it's like, okay, well, how do you build a relationship? Well, first you introduce yourself. Hello, my name is Ari. I work here. I'm from Venezuela. I have 2 kids. I live in New York. Oh, what do you like? Well, I'm obsessed with crypto. Really? What? So like, as you get to know people, we can have a deeper relationship. Okay, well, hey, why don't we go out to dinner? Okay, well, that's level one engagement. Well, how do you equate that to an NFT engagement or a community, an engagement? Like, what does that mean? So it's the same thing. If you're back to meaningful experience, if you're creating meaning and value that is true to you as a brand and true to your customers, no one's going to hold you. No one's going to hold you around. No one's going to say, "Oh, how dare you?" No, on the contrary, it's like, okay, I may not do it or I may not want it, but at least you're not going to crash, which I think was your question.
Yeah. And I think you did a good job of talking through that. So I definitely appreciate it. And I think you've given a ton of real just steps that people can start taking right now, really taking deep dives, taking a reflection right now of like, hey, I'm building this really cool thing. I have my head down. I'm doing all I can, but like, are you necessarily thinking about your brand? Are you thinking about how it impacts your community and who you're ultimately trying to build this thing for? It's a good time to reflect on a lot of that. And while we're in the moment of reflection, you've been doing this for a very long time. If you could go and impart 1 to 2 pieces of wisdom to yourself around branding to yourself when you first got started building your own business, doing your own career, etc., what would you tell yourself?
Um, I'm going to say three things, and I think they're similar to what I just said about even just crypto. But one, be truthful to yourself and to your brand. Uh, Two, have conviction. The greatest successes I've ever had are. It's not that you were inflexible and don't back down, but you have to trust what you're saying, because there's just a lot of wavering trees in any business, honestly, that can change with the winds. And as a consultant, your client is looking for you to provide sort of that assurance. So truthful, conviction, and consistency. And I know that's not really sexy, but we all get bored of things before they've even had a chance to affect change. And that's just humanity. And I get that. But as a brand, sometimes that constant trickle effect is much more important than even being different, or than having, a splashy campaign or even a splashy product. It's like, yeah, it's the patient, not sexy sort of drumbeat that ultimately builds the brand. We all talk again about these brands that we love. Nike wasn't Nike 40 years ago. This crazy frenzy is maybe the last 10 years. Look how long it took them, and they've been a great brand for a very long time. So it's just, but if you look at it, they've done those three things, right? They've been truthful to themselves. They've had, ridiculous conviction in what they believe in and how they function. And I'm not saying they're all great, by the way. There's a lot of things, of course, um, that you could argue, but they're a very powerful brand. And they've done it consistently. They've never deviated.
Yeah. I think those are 3 amazing points. Everyone, rewind that back, listen to it a couple times. I know I'm going to, and make sure I'm doing all 3 of those things as I continue to build brands with my own businesses. But Ari, you've given us so much great information. Before we go to the final thought, one of the ways that if you want to connect and learn more about all the amazing things that VSA Partners is doing, you can go to vsapartners.com. But what are other ways that people can connect both with you and learn more and connect with all the amazing things that y'all are able to offer?
Yeah, I mean the usual ways. Hit us on Twitter, hit us on LinkedIn, hit us on the website. Call me, email me. I mean, we're passionate about this subject, and I think the more conversations we all have, I think the better metaverse and the better Web3 world we're going to build. And I think honestly, it's on us, and that's the exciting part. Like, it is our responsibility to build a kick-ass world, and we have a chance. And let's not spoil it. That's my plea to everyone working in this business. Like, we have a tremendous responsibility, but also an amazing chance to build an amazing and a better virtual world.
I agree. And I don't know if you want that to be your final thought. I think that's a really good one, but like also want to give you this opportunity. You've covered a lot today. You have definitely piqued my curiosity around what more I can be doing around branding. But what's the final message that you want to leave with everyone here?
I mean, I think it just goes back to what I just said. I think it's an amazing opportunity, but it also requires a lot of work and a lot of rigor. So yes, test and learn. Yes, innovate. Yes, do this is the stage we're still in, right? It's a period of innovation, and it's really exciting. But always do it in a way that you're thinking about the long term impact, and you're thinking about habits that you're going to build, and new investors that you're thinking about, communities that you're building, and honestly, reach out for help. Like, and it doesn't mean reach out to us as only, but like you do need experts that know what they're doing, because not everyone knows how. I mean, we all know different things, and that's cool. That's how it should be. So the helps that you have, that you're building this up well up front, so that then you don't have to think about that later, which we've seen that a lot. That's something we didn't touch on, but maybe for another time. Do it early.
Do it early. I think that's a good final thought. Um, You've given us so much today. Thank you so much for all of it. Everyone listening, make sure you go check out all the things that Aria is doing over at VSA Partners. Make sure you go check out their socials. And if you have any questions, make sure to reach out. We'll make sure to have all of the information in the show notes. But again, thank you for your time. And for everyone listening, stay cryptocurrent.